Cool. I posted it in the Telegram.
Okay, now I think we're at the real start. How's it going, everybody? Gabe, let me hear you.
I'm here, buddy. Give thanks and praise. Much respect, y'all.
All right. We are good. Okay, so I've only talked about it a pinch on the channel so far because I've had a lot going on while I jumped into the film. And this Holy Mountain film, I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, there's the Enneagram. I'm just like, I wonder if Slick has seen this. And so after the film, I threw him, like, the link and all that stuff. Like, I threw him a scene that has the Enneagram on it to let him know that, like, the Enneagram's a big deal. And he hadn't watched it, and then he watched it. And then I was like, yeah, dude, we should do a video about it. Because I've had a lot of interesting thoughts about what this film means. I think you said that you prepped for this a little bit by like going a little bit into the biography of Jodorowsky. I think you said, right?
A little bit, yeah. I just wanted to catch up with you.
Yeah. Let's talk about that just a pinch as a preface, and then I'm going to finagle with the cameras for a second and see if I got the screen share correct for the slideshow that we're going to be commenting off of. There's going to be a lot of pictures that we're not going to dwell too long on. There's so many.
So many. Yeah. You know, one thing I'm finding out as part of my process here is, you know, everything I do on my channel, I give myself the benefit of the doubt to believe that these are all original thoughts to me. But I am constantly discovering that I'm actually reverse engineering thought leaders from generations ago. And one great example is I took a long time to tip my toes into Alfred North Whitehead. And sure enough, I find him to have been kind of the grand poobah puppeteer pulling the strings of culture at large. And as far as I can tell, he is very much the man behind the curtain that gave me the creative process to do my system on my channel. But now I'm looking at Alejandro here, and I'm really realizing that Alejandro is also in the lineage of thought leaders who have inseminated our culture with a lot of these systems. And so, yeah, I'm glad you invited me on this one because he is totally in the lineage of the knowledge that is, I keep saying inseminated, but that really is what it is.
Right.
He's, you know, the creative force that has put so much culture into context. So, yeah, this is a big leap forward for me in my consciousness.
Yeah, for a long time, the only thing I knew about Jodorowsky was the documentary about how they robbed him of making Dune and then turned all of that into everything going on in Hollywood, right? And then I finally watched The Holy Mountain, which was basically it was, for what it was kind of a test run, right? A lot of filmmakers, when they're eyeballing a film, they'll make a film that's got directing principles that they want to do with it. And I found the way that he lays out culture in under almost a microscope between primarily the first and the second act of the film, you know, is very interesting. When he's going from planet to planet, you know, I'm thinking Dune in my head, and it's just like, I am Baron Harkonnen. This is this is Gady Prime, right? And going through and giving you the archetype of Gady Prime and Baron Harkonnen, you know, as he's going through scenes in the book. And I'm just saying, yeah, he's testing it out. Like some of the drug trips, it's just like, okay, he's showing you how he would portray spice melange, right? You know, I think there's at least, I think he alludes to an ayahuasca ceremony in there without any of the machine elves. He doesn't go into the machine elf territory, which is interesting. But yeah, let's not delay too much more. So I'm going to try and do this thing proper. Okay, so how did I make this work? I started playing with buttons, and okay, so there was that. And okay, so I think I just want to shrink this down. All right. So now I've shrank that. So now, like, the audience can see all this. Now I need to screen share for your appetite. All right, let's see here. So that way you can see it. Okay, you can see that?
Yeah, buddy, this is looking good.
Okay, good. All right, can now see. All right. And let me just take a second here because it looks like... okay, when I did the screen share... All right, now it's doing the screen share and I can't see us. One sec. Is that how this machine's going to roll? Is that how it works? All right. Okay. Let's just let's just talk, and we'll be off camera on the live stream. There's not a lot of a need to worry about it with us anyway. Let me put the disclaimers down in the description below. I did editing here, right? There's an incredible amount of violent scenes, gory scenes, a lot of nudity. Not all the nudity is sexual, and it's like there's this fine line between like nudity for art and pornography, and it doesn't cross over into pornography, but it's as in your face shocking as possible. And I've spared you the worst in my work to try and get some stuff, but there's a couple of the worst that I did put in here. And don't worry, I've done some terrible drawings. I've done some black marker effect for any horrible things. So I threw this in from the end of the movie, which is just the cast, so that way we have a little bit of context here, right? You know, so Jodorowsky himself is the lead character, who's called the Alchemist, and then the Thief is kind of like the co-star of the film. The written woman, who is the assistant to the alchemist. Then these other guys down here with one name, those are all these cool representations of the planets that we're going to talk about, and they're kind of a rogues gallery. This is it's in its own odd way, it's kind of a heist movie, because that's kind of where they tell you they're going and doing. Like at the end of the second act, they're going to go steal like the throne of immortality on the holy mountain from these other immortals that the dude finds. Like that's the plot of the film, right? And then the last two over here is, she's called the prostitute. This is a woman that loves the thief, and then the chimpanzee is a chimpanzee that's just this companion that like does everything that she does, right? So, I just wanted to go over that and note that this character here, Cell, Valerie Jodorowsky, I believe that was his wife, and so she plays the Saturn character. So it's going to be very interesting thinking of that in juxtaposition to how she portrays herself as Saturn. So this room, I have noticed, has been used in pop culture a whole lot, having a white room with the black cross patterns on it. So this has become iconic in like music videos and things like this. This is from the opening scene. It's got a very Gemini vibe to it, with these two gals that are about to go under transformational ritual. As the opening scene of the film, they're pretty much all in white, prepared for purity. And like I said, we're gonna run through it. And so here's Jodorowsky. Then we're gonna talk about the scene, right? Like I said, all the frames, and I didn't go frame by frame by frame, but I did a lot. So,
yeah, buddy.
So this is his idea of a tea ceremony, right? A Japanese tea ceremony is kind of what's happening in presentation, in ritual motion, but it's being used for a cleansing ceremony, because eventually he does this. He wipes off all their makeup, and then he shaves their heads completely, and strips them naked as well, right? Nice. And all of this is ritual in a non-sexual manner, right? But in the film, you'll see their breasts and everything else, right? Mm-hmm. And then this is at the very end, after he finished doing it, and the process was interesting. There's a point where their heads were together, touching, and he would run the trimmer like from the crown of one up over the forehead, up and to the crown of the other, like, so they're kind of like having this unification in this kind of ritual. And I think that these two girls we will see later on in the film, I have a feeling that they're the same girls. Right. And so then it starts running into the credits, and there are a few shots from the credits I wanted to show too. But talk about this scene.
Yeah, buddy. Yes. So the film was released in '73, and so Marilyn Monroe was totally the dress, the garb of the two ladies, and Marilyn Monroe was known to have that split personality, sex kitten programming, but also the Son of Sam killings had already hit the zeitgeist, and one of the I think I'm getting this right. During the Son of Sam PR campaign, that was total social engineering to the max. They announced to the people of the city that this guy prefers blondes. I think it might be that, or it might be brunettes. I'm 50-50. It's like a Urim or a Thummim. But it caused an uproar because all the women who had the color of hair that they said was the profile the killer was looking for, they stormed the salons. All the women had to go and change their hair color so they no longer looked like the target of the killer. And this is kind of the thing that happened with COVID. All of what Son of Sam was done was reinstilled into the COVID narrative. So I find it interesting that they look like Marilyn. She had split personality, sex kitten, and they are going through this dramatic change of purification. When you said twins, a Gemini, totally. And also the bench they were sitting on, very subtly in the background, it looked like the pi symbol that had the two legs were of the bench between them, kind of looked like two pillars of Joaquin and Boaz, but that is also the symbol of pi, was kind of under their ass, very subtly seated. And then those crosses on the tiles, those are Coptic crosses. Some would associate that with Christopher Columbus. He had a particular form of cross in his heraldry, but that's a Coptic cross, which is the Crux constellation is number 88. It's the 88th constellation on the UIA, International Astronomers Units. Number 88 is the Crux, and that means it's the smallest, it's the meekest, it's the most meager of all 88 constellations in order by size. But it's also said in the past to be the cross of the slaves or the Ethiopians. So, yeah, those are some of the symbols that just popped out to my eyes right away. And I love that you say that that's iconic, and it's been repackaged and reinstilled over time. That's pretty neat.
What do you think the significance is of using the kind of ceremony that he did with the Eastern mysticism And one of my understandings is that Alejandro's got like mixed traditions in his own lineage, so that's why that you see the hodgepodge. It's not just because of alchemical tropes. It's like he's part Jewish and he's part of various things that are indicative to his entire magical aesthetic.
Yes, the tea ceremony, it was incredibly robotic. So I should say, he also eventually he embodies Gurdjieff to a great degree. His appearance in the end, he moves into a Gurdjieffian likeness over time. But Gurdjieff had that mentality that everybody is robotic, everybody's actually a machine, and they're all somnambulating through life. But that tea ceremony, something that I've learned through studying the tea ceremony, is it is actually a practice. It's actually embodying through action. It is ritualizing equity. And equity is a fascinating thing to understand. If you are in the room with somebody else who is your equal, who has the same amount of power, executive power as you, then it is actually tradition for you to only serve them, to pour their tea first, and to do all the work they might desire through your hands. And then they reciprocate that, and they do all the work through their hands to serve you the tea. So yeah, his mechanics were beautiful, and also I think embodying the ritual of equity between two equals of sorts.
The mechanics, I'll tell you right now, is important. Like, it's in my Qigong practice, and you'll see, like me, I'm more fluid, right? But, you know, it's going through a process, right, where you're holding a form with your body, and the very form you're holding is the shape of a sigil of your body as it is. Like, just look at this still frame that I got. Like, you know, he's running, he's got his arm up, and like he's got a certain elbow rotation, and all of that is involved with Qi. Doesn't like unless you've revved your system up to it, because you're often feeling this in the air and the ether. It's just like Qi likes to work better under these kinds of circumstances, right? You know, because like there's things that he does we're going to talk about, like because like in the fight that we're going to see a bit later, like it's just like he's doing a Qi energy ball. Like I do that like every day, right? You know, so like this film is not an alien thing to me, you know, as insane as it is, and because of a life of ritual. So,
yes.
I thought it was interesting with all the many things that were going on. Here's the opening credits, right? In the opening credits, it's scrolling across these occult collages, and one of them was going down this line, and these are like mummies that are also kind of a butterfly cocoon, and showing you kind of like these stages in which the person in the mummification and the wrappings change. And I thought it was kind of interesting, this one in particular, because there's the hand coming down with this kind of featherish instrument at the guy's neck, or the figure's neck. So that's just something that I'm pointing out. There's a couple other frames from in here. You've got this single snake in a coil, like guarding all of these eggs. Throughout this scene, there's all these eyes. Like, and this is like a physical like prop that was like filmed. This isn't like painted.
Yeah.
Like this was like real stuff. So the eyes everywhere, the blue white hues with some gold and such and silver,
yes,
are very thematic. Up here, this is the dragon. There's a dragon on this side. It's got the eyes running up it. And this, I think that's a 20-sided star, because it kind of looks like a 20-sided dice, except it's spiked out.
Ooh, whoa, yeah. That's, yeah, it's so much information. It's so rich.
Yeah.
One thing, back on the, just I don't want to forget, with the tea ceremony, the way he has that pitcher and for pouring the water, but also the bowl that he's pouring it into, that's very correspondent to the star card number 17, which in Greek, the symbol for pi, which is number 17 in Greek, it looks like what we still use for pi today. And so the 17 star card in my prime Enneagram system is number 7, the enthusiast with the shadow of glutton. It's easily inspired, but not in the primes. When I'm just in the normal Enneagram on the first level of presentational immediacy, number 17 reduces to the number 8 personality type, and the 8th muse in the symposium is Terpsichore, the muse of dance, and this will definitely be Gurdjieff's muse. Gurdjieff was a dance instructor, and something I've discovered that is just I never cease to amaze myself. G.I. Gurdjieff is a schizophrenic anagram for choreography. Choreography is the word we use to describe choreography, dance, and that is the muse that G.I. Gurdjieff was conveying onto the world. So the tea ceremony and the mechanics of it in a star card context is really a hail to G.I. Gurdjieff. And then the peacock feathers and the 100 eyes, that's correspondent strongly to Argus, the 100-eyed giant.
Okay, Argus, yeah.
Yep, and he was altered. He was cursed by Hera and turned into a peacock. And because the peacock has 100 eyes, and sure enough, those feathers in the background are peacock feathers. And there is a peacock constellation in the extreme south called the Pavo constellation. And so that's actually on the Thoth Deck Universe card. So yeah, I just wanted to keep up with all the symbolism. It's so much, but I don't want to drag us.
Yeah, no worries. And the peacock is kind of like is like an archaic phoenix, if you will. There's a phoenix relationship to the peacock in the real world. There's lots of correlations in different mythoses that use a peacock in the same archetype as phoenixes are in other places. So when I'm changing the slide, wait, can you see the slides right now, or do I need to reshare for you here?
I can see them. It's just a little bit behind, but you're still on the dice.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. You're probably looking at the delay on the YouTube. Is that it?
Yeah, but there we go.
Okay,
now
all right.
I see where you are.
It's only like a 30-second delay or so, so we should be good. So this is moving on, and this is the quote thief character. This is the opening scene. He's knocked out, drunk, laying in his own piss with a million flies on his face. He's an absolute mess of a human being, right? And so the camera zooms in on this guy, and then it pans over to some of the garbage near him, and there are these two versions of the Fool. Both of them are the Marseille Fool. This one on the left, I'm not 100% sure where you find it from, but, and we'll need to give Slick a second, I did find it on the internet, and at the very least, this is a clear picture here of this version of the Fool deck with all the writing on it. So this particular card does exist. It's not just a Fool with Jodorowsky's notes on it. And this Fool here has got Egyptian motifs. It's got the crocodile, which you're going to see presented in the film. I'm pretty sure I got a screenshot of that. And it doesn't have a sun on it, so which is kind of interesting, which maybe the this crooked monolith monument or whatever, that thing. Perhaps that's supposed to be the sun. Maybe it's tilted because of the Earth's tilt on its alignment. Not sure. But it then moves over, and this is the first shot from the back of this guy. This guy is symbolically very important. Before we jump into him and the picture on his back, Slick, what did you want to say about that first scene with the thief?
Yes. Well, he definitely, because he is covered in flies, the flies are the Mosca constellation, which is also likewise in the extreme south. And here in a second, the alligator comes onto the scene, and the alligator is on the Thoth deck pool card as well. There's
right.
there's a Sobek on shoes coming up, but the Mosca constellation is a very small. It's definitely flying around the Crux constellation, the Coptic cross, and so when certain religious affiliations say that your Jesus is down in Hades, being cooked in feces and swarmed by pestilence and flies, they're being completely cosmodramatic. That is exactly how the Coptic cross articulates underneath the legs of the Centaurus, but down south. And there's also the Mosca is right there buzzing around that Coptic cross. And so I find it fascinating that it's kind of like my daddy would beat up your daddy but expand it out into religious orders. But there are other crosses in the heavens. There's a northern cross, is the swan, is Cygnus. There's a southern cross that is the Grus, is the goose constellation. And then there's the Coptic cross, is the Crux constellation. So there's something of Rochambeau, perhaps, of the Abrahamics, or even of kingdoms and sovereigns who are saying, no, you don't get my cross. You get the shitty cross. We get the good cross that's flying around like a noble swan. You get the shitty cross over by the bugs and where the poop goes, where it runs down to the extreme south. So yeah, I just kind of love that it's my daddy would beat up your daddy, and you attribute the wrong cross to their religion.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a scene towards the end of the film that's also got the flies that pop up. We'll talk about that later. Perhaps we'll see how long the show goes. It's only 8:30. It's only 8:30. We finally got to the midget. So this guy, I didn't get a good picture. And by the way, shout out Mario Garza, Symbolic Studies, has popped into the chat. Holy shit, Thor at the door is here. Thor, thank you. Thank you for coming by. Thor, I know, is a staple. I always see him with shout out Robert Phoenix. And I think you're always rolling with Emily Moyer too. So good to see you here, Thor. Indigenous Everyday book. The Fool card you shared is from the Beline Oracle. Consists of 78 cards. The system looks like a mixture of the work of Jean-Baptiste Eliot. Wow, thank you, Indigenous. Thank you. I don't remember you. Did you change your name recently? Who were you? Were you? Because you're a wrench. And I don't remember giving Indigenous Everyday a wrench. What was your name? And the traditional Marseille deck, the Beline Oracle and the Grand Tarot de Beline, are named after the man whose actual name is Marcel Forget, 1924 to 77. Marcel Forget was a well-known tarotist in Paris in the 20th century, but the decks he published were not his hand. The original author is Mage Edmund, real name Jules Charles Ernest Bilodeau. I have a genius audience, folks. Thank you, Indigenous. All right,
yes.
Slick, what do you got to say about all that gravy?
That was so great. Yes, we are so blessed with our company.
Bestowed. We are bestowed by good company.
Bestowed. Yes, we're bestowed by our great company. So something that I was kind of percolating in my mind, but now that this has come up, that Marseille, and the names of those families that made that deck in particular, I just have to drop Marsilio Ficino on our radar. Marsilio Ficino is the translator of Plato's Republic, and I have great reason to believe that he inseminated Plato's Republic with his own family lineage. And I think people on the inner circles do the same thing, and they're hailing these particular families. Now, granted, there are a lot of extremely common family names in Latin culture because people gain more royalty the closer they get to the motherland. And so the closer you can plant your bloodline to Marsilio Ficino, the more potent. But Alejandro Jodorowsky, his name has the mother of Ficino, which was, let me see, her name was Alessandra di Nanocchio. And then his father was Diotefici Dagnolo. I'm totally saying those wrong, but I see real rich potential for Alejandro's name being implicitly coterminal to the families that gave us Plato's Republic, which gives him command over the realm of forms, which is our imaginatory dimensions. So yeah, the more they can graft themselves to these influences in history, the more potent they are. So yeah, some of those names with that comment also rhyme strongly with the Ficino family.
Got it. Okay, good. Let's roll over here now. So this guy, he doesn't have a name. He's got no arms and no leg. Well, he's got like no hands and no feet, and he's a midget, right? Now, he's got this marked on his back as what he is symbolically. And I'm looking at it, and it's a hand, and on the thumb is the baby Jesus. So thus, I'm looking at these saints on the tips of the fingers, and I'm like, oh, this is the gospel, right? This thing represents the gospel, this mark on his back. So he is an archetype for the gospel that we're going to see the thief's relationship with, right? And this kind of tells you something about certain kinds of people and the absurd reason why they're Christians being who they are, right? Like it's quite something. You will see, right? So, what he doesn't know, because he's put up there by the children. These kids, they're all naked. Like these are like poor people, right? And they're just this mob of like 8-year-olds or something, and they somehow prop him up like pseudo crucified. And you could barely see him because it was hard for me to get the shot. But behind one of those kids right there, you can see him in the purple shirt. He's going to throw stones at the Jesus guy along with the kids, right? And, he set it up. He drew a line in the sand for, like, how far away you got to stand before you throw stones at him, right? And so, like, this is kind of painting the idea of, like, this dude is not your friend, right? That's kind of the idea, right? And there wasn't much to say about the. We'll get to that horror show in a second. All right. So, like, is there anything that you wanted to correlate about this? Maybe you know something about the lamb. I mean, we all know Jesus and the lamb and all that stuff, but like, he had this lamb leg, and he just drew the line in the sand with it, right? Like, what do you think is going on with this scene? They carried him off. I can't believe I forgot the scene of the crowd and the crocodile. There's one of the kids is wearing a crocodile over his head to be the crocodile in the fool card while they carry him drunk to here, and I forgot to grab that shot. My bad.
Yeah, can you make me big for a second? Because I got the fool card here at hand.
I'm not that talented, and
okay.
I'm straight. I'm kidding. Hold on a second. How do I do this? Zoinks. I think I need to. Oh, I think I have to stop sharing. Or no, I wasn't sharing in the first. How do I blow you up? Because I'm doing it the weird way. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Wait. Yeah. That's small. Okay. Boom. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, so that's the Thoth Fool card.
Yeah, let me see if I can get better lighting. There we go. There's better lighting on it. So it's inverted. I have it upside down at the moment. But
All right.
he has, there we go. He has a gator by his boot. And this signifies the Sobek on shoes. And one of the earlier tarot cards you pulled up was a shoe with tarot cards leaning on it, and they had a gator on the tarot deck with a shoe, a busted out shoe in the background. And so I have seen this signifying the Sobek on shoes is the subconscious. And this is an animal totem technology that psychology still harnesses this. But the cool thing about considering Sobek on shoes as your subconscious is it makes profound primal sense, because an alligator has an absurd bite ratio, and it takes in way more information than any other animal because of that fact, just like your subconscious does. Your subconscious has a huge bite ratio and is taking in so much more than you'd ever imagine, but it also has to be down by your feet because our lizard brain is programmed to be cautious and to think fast, and is way ahead of our ability to even track how much information we're taking on in a single second or a single glimpse. And so having the Sobek on shoes down below is saying that we are more receptive than we give ourselves credit for. So yeah, that's what I think the alligator and the Sobek on shoes signifies. And you asked about drawing the line in the sand with the lamb's leg. That, as far as I can tell, will very much signify the spring equinox, the spring equinox. That's the beginning of the pagan New Year, as we break from Pisces to Aries. And something that's important to know is that the pagan equinox, while we don't count our calendar by that, however, the lunar New Year is still tracking that as the beginning of the cycle, because 180 degrees from the spring equinox is Arcturus. And Arcturus, I think it's when, I don't know if it's the new moon or the full moon that initiates that lunar calendar. I bet it's the new moon. So when the new moon is marcating 180 from Pisces and Aries over in Virgo to Libra, when that new moon sparks off and plants a new seed in the soil, that is the new lunar calendar. And so our attention is always on one side of the zodiac, but I'm constantly reminding people of how sacred 180 always is. Putting the line in the sand is actually marking a 180-degree line.
And it's actually more appropriate that it's the lunar year because my mind, until we talked about this, right, with all these characters that are in the cast I mentioned in the beginning that are planets, they don't tell you who the three main people are, right? Like the thief guy, and because he's playing the Jesus role before he meets the alchemist, I'm saying, well, he's playing Jesus. Obviously, he's the sun, because it's always the sun with this fucking guy, right? But no, he actually, in the way it's set up, he's the moon, right? And it has a significant thing to do with how the story ends for him versus the other 9 members in the crew, right? So that's very interesting that it works better in the Lunar New Year, and Jodorowsky made him the moon. That's crazy, right?
Totally. Yes.
to be on point like that. Okay, cool. All right, let's let's see here. I think that, and let me whoops. Let me shrink us back down again. What's going on here? Come on. No. There we go. All right. Let me just get us back to size so people can see the next frame. There we go. Teeny tiny we are. All right, there we are. And okay, so after they stone him till he wakes up, he gets off and he does like big guy pose and he scares them all. Rah! Right? The first act of this film has no dialogue other than if you've played The Sims and people are just making incoherent noises, right? This whole scene, the whole first act of the film is dedicated to the world of the profane. Nothing they say matters. There's maybe 3 lines of coherent dialogue in the entire first half an hour of the film. So they go into the main city. He's carrying the dude on his back, and though these are dogs, I think, that have been skinned and crucified, and they're being held on the bayonets of soldiers, right? And half the people seeing this horror show don't care at all because they're not on the receiving end of it. And then there's all these people that these soldiers are just gunning down under the assumption that there's some sort of dissident kind of character, right? So this is kind of showing you there's this grotesque side to this Christianized world that you are coming into, right? This is all this is a big deal about so many things that I talk about, and why I'm harsh about Christianity, concept of Jesus as the mortal man God, yada yada yada. So after going through and showing you all this horror show stuff, we come up to here. Over here, we have. Hold on, I think I took a picture of. Did I take a picture of the title? I forgot to take a picture of the title. This is a show. There's a show going on called like the Toad and Chameleon Circus or something like that, right? So these guys all run the show, and the thief and the gospel gimp is gonna get involved. The gospel gimp does little things like he bangs on the drum for the fanfare, and he just kind of like stands as this overbearing character, just making like aggressive toad noises, like going like that. And this carnival barker is a Nazi with one eye, right? And he's kind of the guy running the show with all of them, and they're trying to work together, right? And they're gonna do a whole bit. They do a whole thing. They built a whole Aztec city. And then here he is, acting like a toad. Going, The guy's an awesome actor. Like, his body acting he's fun to watch. And so then here are, I guess these are all the, quote, chameleons. They're not far off from bearded dragons. I had 3 of them, not quite. And so they had them set up. Oh, look at that. They're all dressed up in their ancestral ways. They're all pagans. Ain't that something? Just having their thing. And then they do a mock landing of the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, and they show you, the wonderful thing that they did to bring Christianity to the New World, as these toads dressed up as conquistadors start eating the lizards, and then they blow the whole thing up. It's graphic as hell. He blew up the animals for real, you can tell. It's 1973. You didn't have to be kind to animals back then. And then here he is with his fucking gospel, relishing in it, and look at us, we got paid, bitch. Right? And so this is a whole scene, right? This is him being an asinine, it's showing that he's like this asinine person doing all of this stuff, has no idea the horror show that he's co-signing, right? Because what those toads did right there is similar to what you're watching the soldiers do in real time, which leads up to your dog on the menu.
Totally.
So yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that happened in the scene. I don't know if I showed everything that you remember and want to talk about, considering all the little shots they had of the different animals dressed up as such. Did you have anything to say about all this massacre?
Yeah, buddy. Yes. A lot of folks have a snap reflex to think of Canis Major and Canis Minor. I don't think we're really quite there. I think a lesser sung pair of dogs on the zodiac are Canis Venatici, is two dogs on leashes. They're actually they're the pets, the hunting dogs of Buotes. And so I would be inclined to say that those dogs, because we're on the march, they're in a marching procession, and March is 180 degrees from Canis Venatici, where Buotes marks the Lunar New Year. And so I think we would be jumping ahead of ourselves symbolically to say automatically that that's Canis Major and Minor. I think it's even lesser known. And Canis Venatici is an anagram for Vatican science. And so to have these conquistador conquering Christian icons storming a temple, a stone temple, that is also signified by the fact that Buotes is right there by Virgo, and Virgo is an earth element. And so, and that's where Canis Venatici is. It's in the earth element. So I think we're still riding on the equinox line, the spring and the fall equinoxes. And then I want to read something before we breeze past the amputee. This was just kind of something you and I shared briefly in the many treasures that we were preparing for the show. Because these are choreographed rituals. Like even when he told the kids, stay this far away and throw the rocks from there, that was choreographing. And here now we have the lizards on the Mayan temple being choreographed for a slaughter. I discovered that Terpsichore, again, this is the muse of dance, also the muse of choreography, which is an anagram for G.I. Gurdjieff in a funky, fun way. I discovered that it has been stated in the past, I'm pretty sure this is Wikipedia, Terpsichore is mentioned in master poet Tony Harrison's 1992 film poem called The Gaze of the Gorgon. And he's quoted in this saying, Terpsichore, the muse who sees, her dances are done by amputees. And that is creepy. I have not tracked that little research nugget down. But here we have choreography, ritual, dance, and an amputee embedded into it. Gotcha. And so, yeah, I think there's kind of some dark humor that, like, if you're an amputee...
This isn't the first time. We're gonna see it again later on. There's a different amputee in another scene that's definitely dark humor.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, it is kind of funny, but if you think about it, if you're an amputee, you have to be innovative in how you mobilize. So
yeah. One of the first things that this guy does on cameras is he's got no hands and he can freaking light a joint. The first thing he does when the guy wakes up, so he doesn't get beat up for throwing stones at him, is that he fucking throws a spliff out. Right? It's just here, smoke down with me, smoke down with the Bible. Right here, get some Bible stuff. You don't want to hurt me because of the Bible,
Totally.
So speaking of that, so then I find this right here. Okay, so we're about to get into another delightfully disturbing scenario. So after that, they kind of cut right to here, which kind of tells me, like, see, we wiped out all the pagans for you, and now all us Romans are here, and, look at us. We've got, we'll supply you with everything you need to be Christian. Christ is for sale over here. And so they're selling, like, little crucifixes and things like that. You've got these 4 morbidly obese people. 3 of them are Romans, and then you've got a guy dressed up as the Virgin Mary or Mary Magdalene. Doesn't matter. People think they're the same person. They probably are the same person, right? And so they're selling all this stuff, and they get him involved in their nonsense, and so. This is one of the few times where you actually get some coherent thing, and they're just like, drink it, drink it, drink. That's about the only thing has made any sense that's been said since the movie started, right? So he gets passed out, fucking drunk, and the little midget over here, he's trying to, like, stop them from, like, getting him passed out drunk, and they just push him off because they're whatever, and they're freaking sumo wrestlers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they drag him into the back of the potato room, like where they carve potatoes and shit, and they bring this dead pig that they've put, like, this plaster mold goop that looks like it's made out of, like, animal fat or something, right? And they bring this around. And I cut out a whole lot of it because it's just better to just describe. They make a mold of him. And they make, like, a bazillion life-size Jesus out of him. They strip him fucking naked and put a little loincloth thingamajiggy on him. And then after they were done with all that, like, this is done for no other reason than for, like, the film to make you understand what they're going through. And here's the man as Mary, reenacting this.
Totally.
Yeah, which, what's the name? Hold on, I wrote down the name on the file. What's the name of this piece? It's in Vatican. I think it's in one of the places in the Vatican. It's called the, oops, a little too far. Oops. It's the Pieta. It's called the Pieta.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those the Roman soldiers and the Virgin Mary and even the posture of the statue, because he's reclined considerably.
Mm-hmm.
That is the shape of Virgo. Virgo is very distinctly, like, sprawled out, and also Virgo takes up the most degrees of the elliptical plane. It's a full 40 degrees. And all other constellations are actually considerably smaller.
Yeah.
But the shape of it is in the shape of Jesus here on the lap of Mary. But those Roman centaurs, or the guards, the Roman guards, the constellation Centaurus is right there in Virgo. It's the minor deacon of Virgo. And I think Centaurus also represents the maze of the Minotaur. And so in a really weird way, like the entrails of the sacrificial bull there out in the street, the entrails of the bull that's a maze. When you go from the minor intestines into the major intestines, you're actually dealing with a labyrinth. So yeah, all the symbology is very Virgo centric so far.
All right.
But also correspondent to Mars, Rome. With Aries 180 degrees away. So I'm constantly seeing the give and the take of the mirror on the zodiac.
Yeah. This is how he wakes up, and the camera pans out to show you they mass produce, his likeness, right? And it causes him to have a bit of a break. It dawns on him that he's been violated and exploited. Right, and he has, like, this screaming fit. It's all very disturbing, but at least you're like, oh, okay, finally he gets it that people don't respect him.
Yes.
So he destroys every single one of his copies except for one that he uses for therapy. And he kind of has a moment with himself. Then, okay, I didn't take the scene. He then goes and he finds the Romans and the cross-dresser, and he kind of does the whole overturn the tables thing on them, and he beats the hell out of them and chases them out. In fact, he does that before he goes to this moment, I think.
Yes.
So he does all of that. And is there anything more you want to say about this before we move over to the gals?
Yeah, one quick thing. I love your word Jesus. The plural of Jesus. That's great. In Spanish, potatoes are called papas, and papas is also a synonym for the Pope. But it's not just the Pope; it's also all the fathers. And so I think it's very symbolic that the potatoes are actually there's a billion potatoes being strewn about on the floor, but this holy effigy is being venerated and exalted at the cost of a million fathers. So yeah, I just think it's just layering the significance in a polyglottal format. That the papas are by the billions, but the Jesus are by the hundreds.
Okay, all right. So speaking of such, right? So the next scene moves over. There's a temple for Jesus that's been set up in town. So like I just kind of grabbed this shot just to show you this whole bit about what's being just looked at. There's the gold around it. And then there he is sitting on the throne in the center, and I guess that's the Virgin Mary on the left, and I guess that's Joseph on the right because he's got a baby, and yeah. So you're kind of looking at that whole bit right there. So here is where I do my clever editing. So the ladies are covered up, and so this is a bunch of whores that are spending some time with Jesus before they go spend some time with the men of Jesus outside, right? And so the woman with the chimp in the center, that's our love interest character for the film. All the other ladies are just there to make a point. And she always has this chimp for whatever reason. And so at some point while he's walking with himself, these ladies kind of, they're passing by the other way, and they're all laughing at him, except for her with the chimp. She turns around, starts to follow him, right? And to me, this is that obvious thing of her more so than the other gals has like a thing for a man with the Jesus vibe in particular, right? So she's just kind of going with that. Because, she's looking for her personal Jesus. Just like he's looking for his he's holding an effigy of himself, for fuck's sake, right? So, he's running around, he's carrying it in the role, and so the other ladies are following her because I guess they must like her a whole lot because they stop laughing at him because she gives a shit, right? And while they're walking, they then cut. There's this interesting scene. Here's many of the soldiers that earlier on were slaughtering people in the streets, and now they're all dancing with other men. And this is some sort of depiction of hell, because you've got the woman in the red dress, and she's got fucking horns, and she's leading this band that is making some traditional South American music for them to dance along to, and it's just this odd thing, and he ends up walking through this crowd, and it's just a display of something. I don't know if this is because everybody here is gay, or is this just supposed to be the people in love with the stormtroopers, because I think it's a stormtrooper. Yeah, every stormtrooper is just dancing with a guy, with just a guy who's a civilian.
Right.
Right, and they're in hell. It's very interesting, and all stormtroopers they're wearing their masks while doing this. And he's trying to get to the church connected to this building, and he puts his fucking piece up on the altar. Then he wakes up the bishop or whatever, who is in bed with the Jesus that's supposed to be over there, right? Like, there's this very interesting kind of story. There's an owl perched on the bed frame for reasons, right? Buddy. So that's something that, like, there's so many things to be said about owls, and I'm always Athena, or is it the Bohemian Grove? Just like, I got to do my owl studies a little bit better. But if you want to talk about that, let me just make sure that I've taken. We'll get to the face eating in a second. Comment on all this stuff.
Yeah, buddy. So the image before the owl, where the guys in the gas masks are dancing, and there's a band on the stage. I think we're still very strongly with symbols of Virgo, but we're crossing the fall equinox and progressing into Libra, because the musical scales are signified by that xylophone, but also it's moving into an air element. So the gas mask is also signifies that air, the gas, and the fall is the wind is going to cut it's harvest time. The wind is going to cut the leaves, but even those helmets are kind of in the shape of the omega that forms the Libra symbol. So it's kind of like they're wearing that Libra glyph. But, there is an actual missing owl from the old constellation systems. Its name is Noctua. I believe that's Nactua. Noctua? I think I'm saying that right.
Noctura is what I would assume. I don't know if that's correct, but...
Thank you. Yes, that's it. And he's right next to Corvus, the crow. And so many times, symbolically, because Noctua has been kind of removed from a lot of star charts, they will use Corvus as instead. But yeah, they're kind of interchangeable, but they're not exactly the same. They're both on the belly of Hydra.
Like, what other... You see, that's entirely possible just because the way your eyes can play with the stars and the way the astrotheology works. And you've already got one is Corvus. That these two might have been astrotheological correspondences to Hugin and Munin, which there's no Norse correlations with Jodorowsky's work, but whatever that correlates to from whatever Jodorowsky's pulling from.
Totally, buddy. Yes. Yeah. So I have seen images of Odin depicted on his throne with two dogs, one on each side, and then the Hugin and Munin, also up on his shoulders. And so this is all powerfully correspondent to Boötes, where the lunar calendar initiates off of the Arcturus star. Okay. Because Boötes is like a shepherd, and he's holding the leash of those two dogs, and then just coterminal to him is the Corvus and the Noctura, the owl and the crow. And I would even say, Zerilath, have you ever thought about how Odin fulfills that description of Odin? It fulfills a chessboard. The two dogs on either side are like the horse, the knight pieces, and then the two crows. Crows are considered rooks. They're in a rooks family or genus or phylum, and so rooks are the two castles on the other sides of the two dogs. So in a super cool way, Odin is fulfilling the dynamics of a chessboard and the constellations.
Right. Well, we still need the bishops, though. We still need the correspondence of the bishops.
Yeah, the bishops were once boats, And then the popes got their panties in a wad and said, no, we need more churchianity on your chessboards. So they changed them from boats into bishops. But it has the word ships. Ships.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, yeah, so that's interesting. Perhaps the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, as opposed to Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, those could possibly be like ships.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
You know, and so that would be your two bishops. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Let's not dwell on that because it's got nothing to do with the film, and we're an hour and 10 in. All right. So, so in short, like, what is this? He's saying, okay, maybe a different church is for me, is kind of the thing, right? So he's going to someone else. He's trying to affirm his idea of Jesus, effectively, right? Like, is my idea of Jesus correct? He's like, no, this idea of Jesus is correct, and he doesn't like that idea of Jesus, right? Like, so that's kind of going on. And so he goes through some serious depression when he gets kicked out, and he's, you know, they do the living cake face thing, and then he starts, like, he bites into his nose. It's like, oh, his face is turned into cake. I love this game. And so he eats his whole face off, and the symbolism was so just obvious to me with what they were doing with that, as he is, you know, he's devouring his whole identity, right? He's going through ego death as he's beginning to go into a dark night of the soul. And then after he finished destroying his persona, he gives it the hangman treatment, strings it up on red and blue balloons, upside down, with all of his lady friends and the children and the gospel gimp. Oh shit, and I just realized, like the Fool card, look, that's a goddamn obelisk. That's a broken obelisk on the ground behind them. I just realized that. Why there's an obelisk like that in South America, and is that there today, or is that a prop? I don't know.
Yeah, buddy. You know, the Hangman card is highly correspondent to Ophiuchus, which technically is in Scorpio, but
right.
But they're all so close. It's all coterminal. Like, all of these constellations touch each other. You know, there's it's not sequential. So yeah, and then the broken obelisk, Ophiuchus has the shape of an obelisk or the shape of a coffin in his body. But then he is holding, between his legs, he has the head of the snake on one side and the tail of the snake on the other. Serpent's kaput, and then the other half. So the obelisk, it's lined up perfectly, like Ophiuchus is the hangman going up, and then the head of the serpent is the one top of the obelisk, and the tail is the other side. And the scales are the stairs right there. The scales of Libra are the stairs. Yeah, we're totally going into the fall. And also the air signs, so the balloons and the lifting up is all, that's really very zodiacal. I dig it.
Yeah. So after he does this, he ends up going into, like, the downtown area, and this is at the base of the tower. We're finally getting to where he's about to start his magical journey. So he gets up and over here to the tower. All these ladies still following him, just as such, and he puts his gospel down. And so here is at the top of the wizard tower, and there's this entrance at the top, and it seems like the only way in and out, per se, is there, coming up on this golden hook, which gets dropped down. There's there's an Indian man from India.
Oh my gosh, this is so zodiacal. This is like flawless. The Ara Altair is the table, minor deacon, Ara Altair, where he's setting his gospel on the table. And then Ara Altair is right next to Indus, which is depicted as a Native American wearing a headdress. This is so very zodiacal, and it is very sequential, too. So far, we're just going like clockwork. This is great, buddy.
Yep. It's interesting because this is around, like, there's a fish market here, and I'm not 100%. I couldn't quite tell much of what was in the market other than fish because there's so much going on. But this hook, when it gets lowered down, it had a bag tied to it. The bag had pure gold, nuggets of gold, and so they leave. There's a fish, a loaf of bread, and I think like grapes or something. Right? These are offerings that they put on the hook that are to be given to the wizard at the top of the tower. Thanks for the gold, and then they give him a little bit of this, right? So he goes and he grabs a knife, and he decides, I'm gonna go rob this guy. So okay, I didn't take the shot. So they show this whole scene, like takes a minute of him just getting pulled up on this hook, like he's riding it butt ass naked practically. He's got a thong on. He goes to the top of this tower like a fucking madman, and then he goes through the tunnel and breaks through into the Rainbow Corridor. And, like, just the symbolism of going from this pure, like, obviously he's gone through the prism, right? He's gone from that single light, and now the light's been refracted, and he's going through kind of like up the chakra system through the spectrums of light. That's not what's happening to him, but it's kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen to him. I didn't get a chance. I forgot to save like, this isn't there in the film. This is just how I made the thumbnail, and I forgot to erase it. So here, Jodorowsky's in white instead of black, like the opening scene. The written woman, who is more or less completely naked, but I have given her a lovely black bikini, is sitting to his right. His throne is being held up by two, looks like they are stuffed goats. They don't move at all, but their eyes kind of suggest that they see. The camel is alive. And he's coming at them with a knife. He's just going to stab them and take whatever gold he finds. And that's about the extent of his looking. Now, he's set up here like the fucking High Priestess card with Boaz and Yakum. However, instead of the B and the J, he's got 3 out of a 6 bar of the hexagram of the I Ching. And so I went and I did the extra work, and nice. I have provided to you here. This is for hexagram 01 and hexagram 02 are exactly what these are. So,
dude.
So here's the thing. It's only 3 of the 6 lines, right? So, heaven in its motion gives the idea of strength. The superior man, in accordance with this, nerves himself to ceaseless activity. The dragon lies hid in the deep. It is not the time for active doing. This appears from the strong and undivided line being in the lowest place. The dragon appears in the field. The diffusion of virtuous influence has been wide. 3. Active and vigilant all the day. This refers to the treading of the proper path over and over again. Right? And so this is 01. This is initiation. That's the first 3 lines. And then the first 3 lines of 02, which is called responding. Kun. The capacity and sustaining power of the earth is what is denoted by Ka'un. The superior man, in accordance with this, with his large virtue, supports men and things. 1. He is treading on hoarfrost. The strong ice will come by and by. The cold air has begun to take form. Allow it to go on quietly and according to its nature, and the hoarfrost will come to strong ice. That's interesting. Hoarfrost, I think, is also a term used in translations of Norse texts about certain cold regions like Jotunheim and stuff. 2. The movement indicated by the second line divided is from the straight line to the square. Its operation without repeated effort in every way advantageous shows the brilliant result of the way of earth. And 3. He keeps his excellence under restraint, but firmly maintains it. At the proper time he will manifest it. He will have occasion to engage in the king's service. Great is the glory of his wisdom. And in many respects, certainly with that third line there, you kind of see these 6 points kind of play out between initiation and response in the manner in which the alchemist handles the attack of the thief. Is there something you want to say about any of these written passages before I go to the next frame of the film?
Absolutely. So yes, the fish hook that he rides up is kind of a twisted Capricorn sign, and of course the high priestess is in Capricorn. One thing about the fact that I love that you did the math on the I Ching there, and that one of them represents 1 and the other represents 2, because the J of Joachim reduces to a 1 in ordinal reduced, and the B of Boaz equals 2. And so we have, even in I Ching language, there's consistency, cross-cultural consistency. So the 1 and the 2 is also the standard metric of a foot. It's the standard metric of half of a day. These are the standard metrics of the matrix. So many things are embedded forever in the cornerstone of the 1 to the 2. It's also the beginning of every journey starts with putting 1 foot forward. So even all of your endeavors are initiated by passing through the gates of the Joachim and the Boaz. Yeah, there's a lot of consistency going on, man. Great catch on the High Priestess card, for sure.
I can't believe you found a gold hook emoji that looks almost the exact same type as the one in the film. Where did you find that? It's in the chat room if you can't see it, folks. All right, so here's a close look at the written woman in her lovely dress that I made for her. She's Jewed the fuck out. She's got Hebrew written all over her, but not just Hebrew, all right? So I bring it in. She's got this on her knees, so all you Hebrew study people. So that's on her knees. I didn't get, every, inch of her body, but, here's her midsection. She's put a circle of protection, it looks like, around her belly button. She's got, that looks kind of like a bee or something on the left, looks kind of like a turtle on the right. If you know your Hebrew, you can see all that. This is what's on her shoulders, and her chest, which I think that's getting into. The center symbol is an alchemical symbol. The 2 symbols on her shoulders, though, I think that's coming out of Sanskrit. That's Hindi stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Hindi stuff. That's what I thought. And she's got other things too, but I didn't get all of it. This is the closer picture of him. He's wearing the Enneagram pendant. Right off the bat. Like I said, he's got these goats. And then he goes into those mechanical movements again. I wish I could. I probably could show you the scene, but I didn't set it up to play the video player. If you want to talk about mechanical movements, right? He does just a smooth, slow motion, almost like doing the robot. He gets up from this chair while the guy's really close. And I thought it was very cool what he was doing because he's dealing with the thief, and the thief right now is kind of a wild animal. right? He's succumbed to his own beast. He's whacked out and whatever, and perhaps slightly drunk and all these things, and he's just out here trying to rob him. And he's dealing with somebody who's completely in their reptilian brain, operating fight or flight, nervy, twitchy, incoherent, all these serious problems that you would see a dangerous person of any sort. So he's moving in such a way where it's too slow for him to respond like it's a threat, which is like how I approach my iguana, so that way he knows not to freak out because I'm coming over to be kind. Although that's not exactly what's happening here, but he's also moving fast enough where he gets himself into a good and defensible position before he effectively demonstrates that he knows. Like, it kind of looks like he does Taekwondo or something, doesn't it? Because he kind of comes at him, and then or judo, like judo more so perhaps, and just throws him down and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then after he throws him down, he strikes this pose right here. And this is what I mentioned earlier, that he does the fucking energy ball, right? He's holding chi at his core, in between his hands, and that's protecting his defensive field, which is going to be an extension of his nervous system, which is going to help him, physically in stranger ways because of the relationship to the psychology of what could happen. Because eventually he gets up. After he gets up, he gets subdued standing up. Right, like he kind of does a pressure point thing on him, and this is him kind of doing that right here. He hits him in a certain way that stuns him, like almost like turning off a robot, and then he presses a couple of different energy centers across his sternum, and after that, the written woman comes over. He has taken the dude's knife, and she's got a winged disc on top of a caduceus tattooed on her back. And so she reveals in the back of his head that he's got this tumorous-looking growth, and it bleeds blue when cut. And they kind of perform some psychic surgery, and they pull out this crazy blue tentacled squid-looking thing out of the growth in the back of his neck. And I'm just like, 1973, and they're very, very wise to the shit they were going to put in the Needlecraft.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
This is 1973.
Totally.
Mind control squids being put in by by your favored religion.
Yeah,
right?
buddy. I love that you mentioned Needlecraft. I was thinking about the priest's hat. The master has this hat, and it looks very much like quite a few things, but I would say a thimble. And he's wearing a thimble, and a thimble is very symbolic, and it's also symbolic of the fates, the three moirae.
Are you just making fun of Mario's lisp at symbolic studies? Love you, Mario. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that is. I think sometimes the flavor of the pun is actually might be a cultural hail to that would be a Spanish accent. In order to make that visual pun, you're also hailing a specific flavor of accent. And so in Spain, they do change their S's, particularly their Z's, into THs. And so it is symbolic, but he's also controlling the other person's fate and weaving a trap, a snare. And I have to mention Raiden. Isn't that a Street Fighter that Raiden does the Oryuken? Is that Street Fighter?
He doesn't do the Oryuken. Raiden is Mortal Kombat, and he's Raiden's an actual Japanese god, and he's a cognate to Thor. He's a thunder god, humanity, earth protector, yada yada yada.
Okay.
Same archetype. Raiden is a very, very benevolent god. He's a badass.
Yeah, but he's got this hat. He's got the hat that kind of occults his face.
Yeah, he does. It's always cool stuff. Also, I wanted to show, like, this is the following scene, because after they cut that out, he comes to his senses, and the master is so certain that he's come to his senses, he gives him the knife right back to him. Only like a minute has passed since he was about to kill him, right? And he gives him the knife back because he somehow nailed it down to this symbolic moment of pulling this thing out of the nape of his neck, which the nape of the neck is the seat of the soul, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's an important thing. So after this, it was just like, you want gold, right? And he's just like, yeah. So
this makes me wonder about Marcellus Wallace from Pulp Fiction. And people were chasing their tail about why does he have the Band-Aid on the back of his neck.
People
figured
that out years ago. Like early internet esoterics were just like, you know about the gold and the suitcase and the thing in the back of his neck? It's like it's his soul, right? Right. And maybe it was kind of a hail to Jodorowsky here maybe he's Marcellus Wallace came to visit this master, got his ass handed to him, and had his squid has been removed. Right. Like the good nuggets that are there in Quentin Tarantino, very possible. This is an era of film that Quentin Tarantino loves. No doubt he would have watched this just so he could freaking jerk off because of that part of his personality.
Big time.
This is the bathing room. There is a hippo in the tub for reasons. I get, hippos. They're not in South America. This is I see hippo and immediately I think Tuaret, right?
That's
the Egyptian from the Egyptian underworld.
Big time.
Tuaret, and so like there's kind of like, you go to the underworld for healing so you can make your comeback, right? So he's going through healthy recovery in the underworld within this dude's wizard tower. So he goes through an entire cleansing ritual to go into an alchemical ritual to have gold produced, but the gold has to come from him. We'll explain that in a minute. And so, like I said, look at her lovely dress that I've given her. But yeah, this is an 8-pointed star. This pool with the hippo in it. And so I find that interesting because that's the 8 major directions, which correspond to the 8 plus the whole of the 9 of the worlds. Mm-hmm. So, amongst other reasons why you'd have an 8-pointed star as your cleansing ritual pool, right? That's why a magus needs to have money, so they can build stuff that works within the forms to reinforce the magic. The magic's within you, yes, but all this effort. The universe takes notice when you put the effort in, right? So, totally. He does a feet washing thing. You get to see here, because he's taken his hat off now, that he's got the Kung Fu Master's haircut, where he's shaved the top of his forehead and let the rest grow long. So that's kind of one of those tells about the different aesthetics that he's put together in his personal magical practice. And so he's doing this cleansing the feet thing, And it's making me think of the same principles you mentioned in the tea ceremony at the beginning of the film, where, you know, you go all out in, what was it? You go all out in making the tea, and then they have to go all out for you, or something like. How did that go again?
Yes, it's an expression of equity where you are performing all of their desires for their benefit, and then you give them the opportunity to serve your desires for your benefit. So it's perpetual externalized service to each other. It's an exchange of favors, to simplify it. But yeah, that's how equity kind of works.
Yeah, exactly. And he is there to be the 10th man in their plot to steal the Holy Mountain. and so that's the equity. So after he goes through the cleansing, we come into this. This is the alchemy room, and the alchemy room is laid out two-dimensionally as a Merkava, right? It's you've got, you know, it's your star David in the Jewish tradition. He's no doubt drawing from, and I know that I have seen this exact machine in alchemical manuscripts. I'm sure I caught it in somebody's like mind unveiled. This is where he completely Jews out, complete with the black cube of Saturn. He's got the binding on his index finger, which in palmistry, the index finger is the mount of I think it's Jupiter. I think Jupiter is the index finger, the pointer finger.
Right on.
Yeah. All right.
You know, before we progress too far,
sure.
I'm quite convinced that when he was in the bathing pool and getting his feet washed, that will be the constellation of Horologium, which is a clock tower, but in Greece it would have been a water-powered clock, and it's actually fueled by the currents of the Eridanus River. Is the constellation that runs parallel to the Horologium, and on the other side of the Eridanus River is the Fornax constellation, which is a chemistry set. And so the bathing pool is Horologium, and on the other side is the Fornax, and that's where he goes through this alchemical process. So yeah, we are totally progressing exactly in clockwise with the zodiac. This is great. Right. And we could even say that the thief is, because he's going through a cleansing process, right now he's at the delta or the runoff of the Eridanus River. It's at the foot of the river. So that is very significant by his feet getting cleansed there.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. All right. So here's the device and him in it, like, and people have seen depictions of this with basically a Jesus in a glass egg, like, you know, under different kinds of contexts. And what I failed to show you is that that on the left over there, well, actually, you're looking at, isn't it funny? This is red and blue again. I didn't realize the other liquid was blue. So you've got a red liquid, which has a stool sample in it. And then you've got a blue liquid, and I think the blue liquid is, I think that's empty, and that's where his sweat, so this is like a sweat machine, right? He's in a sweat machine, and the alchemist is going to turn his stool into gold, right? And so it shows you this process where he sweats, and then the sweat is gathered and then kind of like mixed in with the gold. And the sweat process also is a detoxification process for him, because of course the alchemy's on the inside. He's becoming gold himself by having the impurities purged from him. I want to do this. And so there were several frames that showed the alchemical transformation. So here is like just shortly before it becomes gold itself. He shows it like it looks kind of like a really dirty quartz crystal. And then it turns into that, and there's your gold turd. And then after that, he gives him the gold turd, brings this Vesica Pisces shaped mirror to him while he's holding the gold, and he looks at it in the mirror, and he freaks out at his face because which I read as he's still got the hang up about, appearing like Jesus. Like, he's not like fully past his past yet, right? And he throws the gold at the mirror and shatters the mirror, right? Because he doesn't want to see himself this way anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And then he begins going through the initiation process. He takes him under his wing from this point on, and instead of just giving him gold, he teaches him how to be an alchemist and a wizard, just like him. And so he's doing like this walking process in this hall of mirrors. And I found this scene interesting because I guess they couldn't film this scene without getting the camera in the shot. Oh, hold on. It's a little bit cut off, but if I scroll, let me, I blew up the picture too big. So they basically put the written woman in the scene in front of the camera that's being used to film the scene. And so you're actually getting an unspoken break of the fourth wall in this scene because they can't avoid the fact that they're filming the scene in the scene.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But other than that, it still has that really awesome effect. If only the dude who did the Enter the Dragon film for the fight scene in the Hall of Mirrors helped Jodorowsky out, they might have figured it. Because if they could do a whole fucking kung fu like long sequence in a fucking Hall of Mirrors and not get the camera in the mirror, then I'm sure this scene would have been a piece of fucking cake. But anyway,
totally.
tough job, and I'm not going to hate him. So there's this little obelisk in the center, and they go, and he has to break the... Once again, Dune. When in the Lynch version of it, they're using the weirding module to break the stone, right? Here he's got this stainless steel axe trying to break the stone. He can't break the stone, and this is like a lesson. And then and then the master breaks the stone in one chop, and there's a crystal ball that is in the stone, and so it's very it's like the pearl that's being made in the earth, and there's a lot of interesting things. It's obviously about like this is the crystal of purity of you within this hard exterior. That's kind of what I'm getting at with this. So what are you thinking about all of this in the scene here?
I'm definitely because it's the pinnacle of an obelisk. I'm still very much thinking about that horologium constellation. That is it's a tower, but with the mirror and the Vesica Pisces shape of the mirror. That foot of the Eridanus with the fornax and the hologium is pretty much in Aquarius. We're very much in Aquarius, but you mentioned Vesica Pisces, and so we're kind of progressing from Aquarius into Pisces. And this is the point in the story of Perseus versus Medusa. This is the point where Perseus he decapricorns Medusa, and he leaves her body, and Pegasus springs out of her neck. And so there's a treasure. He's rewarded for his slicing.
Okay.
And that's where Pegasus constellation initiates. It's very large, and it goes for almost 3 months. It's really a vast constellation, but he's for the cutting effort, he's receiving a gift for it. And interesting enough, just a kind of a quick side weave, when Chumpster got his ear castrated event, that happened during the Aquariid meteor showers. That happened at the moment that Pegasus is jumping out of the head of Medusa down in Capricorn, and also Mars and Uranus was occulting the Algol star. So the alignment for that ritual was perfect for a little bit of blood and a great amount of reward. Because then Perseus, to redeem his transgression, he takes Pegasus under his wing and owns up to the responsibility of the deed, and then rides off into the sunset. So, and then the next, funny enough, that happened during the Chump event, was the Aquariid meteor showers, where Pegasus is springing out of the decapitation scene. But then the next constellation to light up under the cycles of the meteor showers is happening right now, and that's the Perseid meteor showers. It's just a couple weeks apart from each other. So the progression of the mythology is actually, we're under the moment where Perseus, with Medusa's head on his hip, is actually giving us a baptism right now. So it's very pertinent to where we are in time right now.
Okay. Interesting. So this here is the tarot room. You've got this multi-lotus floor pattern, which you've got 5 petals on the top layer, 5 petals on the bottom layer, and I think this is looking at more Sanskrit. I took a couple of pictures to try to get each letter that's on each tip. So if you're looking carefully, you can see all of the, I don't know if any of these are going to mean anything to you. And I also got shots of all of these when they're doing the rotation. So
nice.
We're going to catch that too. This starts spinning faster and faster. It took me a hot minute to freeze frame it where it wasn't blurry, right? So this is trying to get everything to make sure that we're seeing all the letters properly. And I think I just did these 3, and that was the best I could do before it got way too fast, right? And so they're sitting in the circle of the magician. They got the triangle within the circle and a circle within the triangle. And knowing now that the alchemist is supposed to be the sun, and that the thief is supposed to be the moon, you know, now this scene, because they keep spinning, it's from Earth, that's just the sun and the moon running around, right? You know, because they never go retrograde. So,
right.
So that's just that's kind of like an acceleration of time is passing by, and this is where he's getting his tarot level of initiation. And so the alchemist throws down tarot cards in the inner circle, and then these are particular like tarot type of cards that he has up on his walls over here. And so this will be some serious occult candy for you to dive into, Gabe. So here I was able to get the whole pad. I'll just run through these real fast and we'll go back. So
yeah,
there's 3 of them here. You got like this barn with the coin. You've got this pyramid with the numbers. You got this man looking at the clown in the mirror. You've got this strange figure with the red wand, the blue wand. This looks like, I think it's a heart. You got the moon, the sun, some sort of a grave at his feet. These people are making love in a cloud over him or something like that. You've got a man who has a woman coming out of his urethra. And there's gold coming out of the woman's mouth. There's 2 people that are carrying their heads in their hands. One's red and one's blue. The guy with the woman coming out of his urethra has the tree of death. That's the typical Kabbalistic tree of life is actually the tree of death. It works on the inversions of the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8. But that's such advanced knowledge and such unfamiliar knowledge that I give people a pass, because they're trying to demonstrate something that's got tradition behind it. Then over here, let me see, I kind of got the whole of that image. This is the best I could do with this image before the scene cut. So you've got this very brown-skinned man in a green cloak, and he's kind of got sun rays behind his head. He's some sort of king or god. He strikes an egg, with his sword, and it cracks the egg, and there's some sort of like a red, like a wine red swan that's kind of coming out of the egg. And the egg looks like a woman, and checkerboard floor, so this is Masonic stuff. I think his foot is on a crescent moon, and there might be like a pyramid behind him, and a few other details. I want to say that the egg design makes me think of Salvador Dali, because it's kind of surrealistic, and Dali has that very famous painting with the egg.
Yeah, man. Yeah, these are extremely unique images. I will say that one thing, I'm quite sure that we are now in Pisces. We've progressed from Aquarius to Pisces because of the lotus flower on the floor of this chamber. In the Thoth deck, the Empress card is holding a lotus flower at her breast. And so the lotus on the floor seems very correspondent to the lotus of the Empress card. And these tarots on the wall are so unique.
Yeah.
The one that, if you can go back one image, the one that I got a real strong sense of was the one with the two lovers up in the air,
yeah,
and the man down on the ground. He's kind of raising out of a coffin or sarcophagus.
Yeah, he's kind of like got like a heart for a head, and it's got like a mouth. I think that's a heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
This one is, I think it's a derivative of the Judgment card from more of the Rider-Waite, because generally that Judgment card has 3 humans rising out of coffins, and the child's ass is like at the center of that card, and then there's like a heavenly figure blowing the trumpet of judgment from above. So yeah, that seems very correspondent to the Judgment card, which Crowley altered into the Aeon card. This was his major alteration to his deck from the Rider-Waite. But that is like that's the most I don't want to say normal, but that's the one that's the most recognizable from the systems that I do know. Yeah, that is really something. It's almost like from the Judgment card, it's like the child is still down on the ground, but the parents have like ascended up into the angel's arms somehow. But yeah, that's about all I could say. Yeah, these are so unique. I wonder if these are actually circulated still today. If there's like a Holy Mountain tarot deck out there somewhere.
Right. Like I think that this is an oracle deck. I don't know if it's a tarot deck. I mean maybe
okay.
like that, like this card, the one we're talking about, could easily be 2 of Wands, right?
Okay. All right.
And that would be and would all of these be lower arcana? And why would you put such predominance on one room for the lower arcana for your movie, right?
Yes.
You think you'd want to do so. This might be, he might be saying that this is tarot just because any oracle deck can be tarot, is maybe what he is trying to say.
Right. And
Yeah.
I was thinking when I was watching it that I kept thinking, man, those pictures are totally off the wall. But then I was like, no, I'm lying to myself. Those pictures are off the wall, but they're on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's see here. Next. Okay, so we saw that one. So then we have this one over here on the far left, which the guy's got an ankh, and his head, his face is sticking out of the top of the hole in the ankh, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's got 8 arms. One of the arms is black. One of the arms is pale. And then the other arms are the same tone as the rest of him. He's got a sideways ankh where actually it's not a him, it's a her. where her genitals are. She's got a red dot over her navel. And then she's got, what's she got? She got a lantern in one hand. Oh, the white lily is in another hand. A fire stick. That fire stick reminds me of the fire stick of the male figure in the Devil card in the Rider-Waite Smith.
Totally.
Yeah, there's a lot of fascinating stuff here. The cloud in the background has a lightning bolt coming out of it. I just noticed on the right.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is a hardcore amalgamation. You know, I see the world card.
I just realized the ring around. Yeah, I think it is the world card. You're right. Yeah.
So it's like the hermit. It has the hermit's lantern.
Yes.
The world card's ring. Then the lover's card. No. I think it's more devil's card with the lit torch there.
Yeah. That's more the devil's card. It's got the fool because he's got the white lily coming out of the stigmata.
Oh, yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Which was an image from the very opening scene.
Yeah. And, you know, what is he standing? Is he standing on turtles? I think he's standing on sea turtles.
Damn, that's a...
And that matters towards the end of the movie. That matters. Standing on a sea turtle matters towards the end of the movie. It symbolizes something else, too.
Very interesting. I always kind of... This is a hazy myth for me. I don't remember the names of the provenance here, but the phrase, it's turtles all the way down. That was, I think it was a physicist had just given a presentation on his cosmology and his highfalutin speech, and he's coming out of his presentation with a bunch of people, and he meets an old woman who's going to confront him, and she says, you know, you talk really fancy, and she like questions the ultimate of his theory, and he tries to dance around it again, and she's like, you know what? No, that's not it. That's not the answer I'm looking for. And he says, okay, well, what do you think it is? And she says, well, Mr. So-and-so, it's turtles all the way down. And so she's like a strange oracle, and nobody really knows who she is, but she's immortalized in the myth. Okay. And so that phrase is kind of this anonymous, mysterious woman who was putting a highfalutin physicist in check. And I know that's real popular in the flat earth community. It's turtles all the way down. So I love that. I just love that.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay, so got a few more here. I think I got a full shot of the one on the right. So we'll talk about, No, I didn't. Okay, I think that was the best I could do for this one. But okay, so on the left, we've got like, they're climbing a mountain. It's kind of, okay, that scene's kind of foreshadowing the end of the film because you've got because they're climbing a mountain. There's like a boat to get to the mountain at the bottom, and then there's at the top of the mountain there's more like land to travel. Like, it's very odd, the top of this thing. And totally. Is that? It looks like this little, like, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's this piece of land sticking out at it looks like the top of this picture is like a different world, and the top third is a cutoff, and it's like you get to the top of the mountain and you get to this world up here.
Yeah.
And there's like a little farmhouse over on the right, and there's like a city, like a modern city on the left, right? Not as Mystique-like, but but that's what's happening when you climb it. And they're carrying not backpacks, they're carrying coffins.
Nice.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. And then over here, this is about as easy as it gets. That's the alchemical marriage of the eagle and the snake, the plumed serpent. The two of these fight, they merge. This flower here would be a stand-in for the Orphic egg that they're fighting over, right?
Yeah.
You know, and this is when the higher mind and the lower self find harmony. They merge, and that's when you unlock your dragon, your plumed serpent. Then over here, this far side, it's, I think it's a unicorn. You've got this strange man who is kind of flipping, who's jumping over it, and he's got this weird figure on his arm that almost looks like that's another face. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. You've got this face that's split between where we're at the mirror. There's the broken mirror, just like the way the thief broke the mirror before he went through this initiation, and a whole line of people, and I think that's a king and the queen holding the mirror up. Like that, there's a whole lot of interesting stuff. There's definitely this. I guess there's a split personality side of it, and there's also going through the looking glass. The portal element.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, that snake and the serpent, because the serpent has that red on the end of it, that star that it's holding up aloft. That is really powerfully correspondent to the Hydrus constellation, not Hydra. Hydra is well known. It's the female Hydra. It's over in the fall. But there's a Hydrus constellation. It is much lesser known, and it is right at where the Eridanus, it's extreme far south. It's where the Eridanus is washing out. And then the Phoenix constellation is just above the nose of this. Sometimes it's bloody. It has a bloodied head. And so the Phoenix above and the Hydrus almost matching, they're coterminal to each other. And then I just want to say about that disappearing animal, it could be a unicorn or a bull going into that orifice wall.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of foreshadowing that character more in the third act towards the end, when they get to the mountain and they're in the carnival and everybody's trying to sell the mountain in different packages.
Yeah.
And there's that one character who can walk through walls.
Okay.
And
okay.
I think this is kind of foreshadowing that character that we'll get to maybe another time. Way down the road.
Yeah, you might be right. You might, because this dude who's leaping over the mirror, he's kind of got that pointy hat. He's kind of dressed in green. He looks kind of like the guy at the end of the film. You might be right, because that's why I brought up the turtle, because when we first see him, he's standing on a sea turtle, and I'm trying to figure it out. So this is a clue in in that respect, which is why I brought it up.
Yes.
Do you want to go to 11 and see where we leave off?
That sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So so sit tight, guys. We're gonna do another 60 minutes. We'll see. We'll see how far we get. We might even cut it off before then if we're like really far, so that way we have some show left, and so they're kind of even on run times. So over here, this image in the center seemed very almost self-explanatory in many respects. With once again, you've got like the clown. You got a clown in the mirror. And, does he have... The clown's got it's an upside-down cross on his hat, but it's kind of sticks out in like a little red circle up here. So it kind of also looks like Venus. It kind of looks like the Venus logo. And so this is kind of a play on the world again because of the way the mirror is shaped. Mm-hmm. It's cracked. He's pulling the clown through the mirror. The clown's reaching out to pull him through the mirror. And I guess he's got a mind of science, right? He's got like atoms and stuff, a mind of science, and then there's a swirling vortex above that mind of science. And there's a lot of interesting things that make sense about that. And then he's got this lamb at his feet. And then in the mirror, he doesn't have a lamb at his feet. I think I see that's some sort of black animal. maybe a, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. It's some sort of, like, maybe a dog, maybe a cat. I can't tell. Like a big cat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. And then over here, you've got the I Ching again, except this time it's the other way around, where you've got reaction on the left and initiation on the right.
Nice.
You've got the guru sitting Indian style on the bottom. He's got a marking on his chest that I don't have a clear picture of. He's sitting on the alphabet on like a tiger skin rug. He's got the hands like this coming out of his head. That is a motif that we see in all sorts of places. We see it in Egypt. There's something wild about that's going on. And then on top, there's kind of a blue, kind of Buddha-esque figure. Seems like he's got a Kundalini energy running. And then there's this, it looks like he's inseminating through the hourglass through the top of his head.
Uh-huh.
So he's inseminating him with ideas through his crown. And he, upon his own crown, has stars and a winged disc over his third eye. Fascinating.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this makes me think of this symbol. I'm not sure what that means. You're right. It's prolific. It's everywhere. It makes me think of that there's actually exoteric sign language, that we have a lot of things we do with our hands that everybody can agree that, like, you know, this means stop and this means touchdown. And there are a lot of sign language that everybody agrees upon, even like the international sign for choking, you know?
Yeah.
But then the character up above him, who has, you know, is kind of a Buddha of astrology, you know, that just makes me think of like the divine twin. Which I think a funny thing, like, you know, we vilify the term Big Brother, and Big Brother is evil. But in a fascinating way, we're kind of shit-coding the divine twin, which is beyond good and evil, you know? So that's what I think of. That's the Big Brother that cannot be shit-coded.
I feel you on that. And down the line when we get to what's his name, Axon or whatever, the guy who represents Neptune. What a ridiculous fucking human. They're all ridiculous human beings. This guy is oh man, what, like, ego, testosterone, the whole 9 yards. It's hysterical. Totally. Oh my God. He gives him this, he gives him the pentacle, and then he goes and he turns the pentacle upside down, right? He goes from the power sign, drawing up into the ethers to drawing down into the earth, rotating it when he hands it to him. Then this scene is interesting because this is he hands him all of these implements in a particular order in this particular gesture, right? He starts with the wand in between his legs, then the sword under his arm, the chalice in front of the sword, and then he puts the coin up to his head. And so these are the lower arcana, right? This is, basic alchemical mastery of the 4 prime elements. And so when he gives him the wand, he tells him to know. When he gives him the sword, he tells him to dare. When he gives him the chalice, he tells him to want. And when he puts the coin to his forehead, he tells him to be silent. And I thought that was an extraordinarily, completely different way of referring to the meanings of the magician's implements and these lower arcanas, to put them in that, because to know, I immediately think of the mind cards is the sword, is the air, that's knowing things. And then to dare is the willpower, and that's the wand. Here he's got that the other way around. To want with the cup is, desires, that's emotional, that made perfect sense. And then the silence of the pentacles was very... I wasn't sure why to be silent was the way for the pentacles. But what's your input on that?
Yeah, man. It is. It's a very unique conveyance of these maxims. So in the standard Magi card, there's a table at his waistline where all of these implements are being placed. And something I've learned on my journey is the very sacred shape of the Ara Altair constellation, which is down at is in Sagittarius, where the Magi card signifies the sage. And that table and the shape, the exact shape of that table, Ara Altair, has come to take on such vast meaning for me. And ever since I've lensed it into my worldview, it has enriched me greatly, because the heptad of the Enneagram is a geometric perfect fit for Ara Altair, which sometimes it's depicted as a furnace or a three-legged cauldron of sorts. I think of it as Hero of Alexandria. He actually invented the first steam-powered engine ever. And it's just a ball. It's called the aeolipile, or aeolipile. It's probably a hard P. And it's a ball full of water, but it's being slowly cooked. And eventually, when it percolates, it has these two emitting nozzles. That the steam from these two nozzles, like a yin-yang, they start to steam and they generate motion. And that invention, I think, is also signified by the Ara Altair constellation. But I love how the pentacle goes onto his mind. This, I think, signifies the number 5 personality type is an observer with the shadow of greed. And a lot of people jump to presumption to think that that's about materialistic greed. But I think it signifies the truly wealthy Magi has an abundance of wisdom that is too much for our tiny mouth noises to fully enrich other people with. And so you have to find really crafty ways to pack your gnosis into hypersigils that unpack and enrich the other person's internal landscape. And so it is not materialistic. It's just that sometimes wisdom is so hard to fully enrich the other person with. So the pentacles, I've actually used the Ace of Pentacles in my number 5 position sometimes as a placeholder. But I want to say, like, a lot of people talk smack on some of the Magi of the ages, and they say, it's probably not a good life. I mean, look at Crowley. He was, opium, heroin addicted, died broke, a shitty example of how to live your life. But I always think to myself, and I don't throw it around very much, he died wealthy beyond words. He died wealthy beyond words. And in fact, you're impoverishing yourself to project that he was a shitty example, because a lot of people would kill just to get a peek inside that guy's head. But then I counter often with Carl Jung was a Magi of epic accomplishment, and he died quite successful. And he also had that wealth inside his internal landscape. So yeah, I think they're a good juxtaposition of each other, that they both shared the pentacle of gnosis in their mind, in their internal landscape.
Okay. I'm noticing also here, there was never a frame that came in to capture this particular card, so we don't know the top of it, but you've got this butterfly on the ground, and there's this water coming out of like a fountain of some sort. that's leaking down to the butterfly in the ground. It's a red floor. It's very, very interesting. It might be a 5 of Cups situation because there's 5 streams of water there. I don't know.
Yeah, that kind of looks like the Our Altair kind of. It has many. Yeah, I always tell people don't just look at one artistic depiction of it. Find like 5 or 6 of them because it takes on many different forms. But yeah, I see that totally as the Altair.
All right. Excellent. So after all of that, then this pops up without any kind of context. So you've got an ox with the I forget if this symbol has a particular name. Often it depicts a boat. A boat that is used to traverse the Nile symbolically as a psychopomp of the to go into the other world, into the underworld. But that's basically, we're talking about like Hathor, right? Like this is a very Hathor thing. The horns of Hathor, those horns also is doing the same thing that the arms do in the other picture, right? It's just got that 90-degree angle up, right? And then there's, I think that's a vulture on the back of this ox.
Oh, whoa. Yep. There's no vulture in the constellations, but at X marks the spot of the Analema, which on the rise, that's tax day. And there's a hostage right at tax day, which is also Passover, the sacrificial tithing. That's on the rise is where Prometheus. Prometheus is also the hostage of the Zodiac, chained in that position on the rise of tax day, the sacrificial offering.
Yeah.
And then as the Analema comes and descends to cross the X, when you're at X, you pay the tax, and this is when the Vulturnalia attacks Prometheus. And so the vulture descending on Prometheus in forever and ever is the shape of the Analema means eternity. And so there is a vulture descending to eat out the liver of the hostage of the Zodiac at Axe, is constantly attacking that cross.
Okay, yeah, I follow. All right.
Nice.
So over here, we hit the Rogues Gallery. This is what I call it, right? So this is everybody. This is the irony of it. Everybody's got a replica statue of them. So the moon guy who had to destroy his Jesus likeness had to go make another likeness of himself, which then later gets burned in effigy. So they're doing a ritual in this room where they are tracking along this in kind of a figure 8 style. So he's walking here. I forgot. You said you can see my mouse cursor?
Yep.
Okay, so he's walking, and then he's not walking in a circle. He walks here, and then he walks to the outside, and then back to the inside, and the other one's doing the same, and they stay in synchronicity to each other going around. So this can be another kind of play on the Earth, the sun and the moon passing each other in different ways in the sky.
Right.
So from here, we get into the Rogues Gallery, right? It's going to start with the guy who represents Venus. Real quick, is there anything you want to say about the symbolism on the ground before we get going? And I also think that there's an animal here on the bottom. Hold on a second. I think so. I think it's a bird. It's hard to tell from the top up. It's easier when you see things moving and it's on the actual video screen. But do you know anything about these symbols before we move on to the next scene?
Yes. You know, I'm compelled to mention the dance that Mars and Earth do with each other because of the red background. And Tycho Brahe and a great many astronomers were always pointing out that Mars just does not behave like the other planets, and its orbit and its dance to us has something of a uncanny syncopation, a rhythm that is just not like other planets, which kind of makes sense if it is the next planet outside of us. It does have a very exceptional shape, and something about the mathematical constant of the number 22. And this is a whole rabbit hole in and of itself, but I just noticed that the shape has two wings. It's all very red, and these two guys are syncopating, like you mentioned. And Tycho Brahe and many others have speculated that on some sort of grand cycle, on a grand sine wave of a very unique shape, that Mars makes a dangerous approach to us. And when it makes this approach, and maybe progressively closer every time, and then progressively further out on a greater cycle, that Mars goes through a powerful conflagration, and it has planetary tornado storms. And the tornado storms are said to be, these tornado funnels are said to be up to 2 miles tall. And that blows my mind to ponder a global tornado storm with 2-mile tall tornadoes. But it becomes hard to even see the surface of Mars when it does that. And actually, in our lifetime, recently, I don't know, in the last decade, it did this. And this is fun because Mars is generally depicted as a ram with spiraled horns coming off of his head.
Yeah.
And I think of those spiral horns as signifying tornadoes, 2-mile tall tornadoes. So yeah, that's just some weaves that I see going on potentially around that image there.
All right, interesting. All right, so our Venus guy, who is one second, because I didn't write things down. I'm just gonna jump back to this real quick. Okay, that's right. Okay, so his character's name is Fon, Fawn.
Right.
And so he's the Venus thing, but dude, so his name is Fawn, but I think that's a play on the fawn, because when you understand his kind of sexual socio dynamics, you can kind of get he's kind of the word's not evil, but it's just he's like a big league Mr. Tumnus kind of thing. So he's got this factory that handles all sorts of Venusian things. It handles clothing and beauty and whatever. What you're looking at, the corporate this is where Alejandro Jodorowsky is showing you corporations are using occult logos, right? So this guy started his Venusian corporation using a play on the Venus logo. Not all of them are done different like this one. This is like an inversion, right? Normally that's upside down. We normally do Venus with the cross on the bottom, right? You see a lot of this. Not all of the planets Jodorowsky does this way, but Venus is one of the ones that he does. So all these people behind him, those are all women that are his quote-unquote secretaries. Every single one of them is pregnant and also holding a child that are his. And none of them are married to him. They just work for him.
Totally.
And so he, there's this one redhead who's just doing some random shit, with like a mattress or something, and she's dirty. And he just comes over, he just wipes her face real quick, barely, doesn't even say like a word to her, and just walks away. but that's protocol at the company. And she's like, oh my fucking God, I've been promoted. So he promotes a chick to be his secretary. They get on the factory line mattress, and he gets her pregnant, and she comes out with the mattress, and she's pregnant, and then she gets in line behind everybody else, and she thinks she's special, but at the same time she knows that she's no more special than anybody else in the... It's this, you know, and it's that... I'm looking at it, it's just like, women be like that, though. It's just like, you know, it's just like... You're not special to him, but she doesn't care, right? Because his world is so much to her, right? And so this is, you know, this is kind of his bit with that. The guy in the background is kind of like, oh, I forget, like, they explain him. He has an important role. I think, like, he used to run the company, like, and now he runs the company. I forget if that's his father or whatever. But he's blind, and he does this absurd thing where he checks his wife's, you know, they use the word sex instead of the word genitals. But, like, basically he sticks his fingers in his wife and uses that as his gauge for making business decisions. Sexual divination.
Yep,
it's a bit hysterical, right? Here he's got all these male models who are trying to have as nice a chest and ass as me. And as you can see, they need help because they're not doing enough of a workout because it's 1973 and Arnold Schwarzenegger hasn't pumped them up yet. Right, and so this is all like atypical, like South American slave labor stuff. I mean, granted, it's not really slave. Like, you look at it, and nobody's like, of all the people, he's probably doing some of the least evil stuff in the conglomeration of what's going on with the Rogue Gallery. He has a hall of faces, right? Because his business is not just people's clothing, it's people's entire look. So he's giving you a face you can buy, not just clothing you can buy and comfortable things like, you know, comfortable furniture and all these comforts and all this Venus in the marketplace kind of stuff. As well as like necromancy, technology, so that way the deceased can participate in their own funeral through systematic, like he's got like a machine wired up to this guy, and this dead priest is doing the sign of the fucking cross. Right? Yes. And so this is also being considered a Venusian thing, according to Jodorowsky. Okay, so that's all the notes I took on Venus. Before we move on from Venus, what do you want to say about our friend Fawn over here?
Yeah, buddy. So that scene where they're coming off the mattress and there's a bunch of ladies in a line and she gets kind of pushed back to the end of the line and there's the fella in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
These are all elements of Taurus and also the Hierophant card. And the Hierophant has, and Taurus is all very powerfully correspondent to the planet Venus and the attributes of Venus. But a cool thing about that fella in the wheelchair, in Taurus, there is a lame charioteer. The constellation Auriga is just right there. I mean, exactly the way it's blocked out in the imagery. It's just off to the right, and that's where the lame charioteer is located. And then just a little bit off with a little bit of drag is the Seven Sisters, the Pleiades. So the line of ladies are literally cosmologically perfect for the Seven Sisters of the Pleiades.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's uncanny how you know, it's uncanny to me that we can actually make sense out of this movie. That's what's uncanny, is so many people would see this and just be like, this is crazy, this doesn't mean anything. And I'm like, no, this is clockwork.
This movie is not for people that don't know how to self-examine the cringy side of themselves. Yes. Right? There's a lot of shadow work in this fucking film.
Yes.
right? It's just like, if you have certain dispositions about religion, or like, honestly, the way this depiction of rogues galleries is, it's kind of it's like where the first act is like, here's everything that's wrong with Christianity. The second act is not just introducing us to all these planetary characters, it's also showing us it's kind of atheism, right? Because the whole bit with these guys is that they've all been initiated by the alchemist, and they went off into the world. And this is them doing their thing in the world at their level of initiation, right? And they're not like the master. And then they get called in because the 10th member of the team that they needed had finally appeared. The moon was in the right place to start the quest, if you will, right? And so this is also giving you a demonstration that these people that God has nothing to do with their modus operandi, they maybe are like more personally dignified professional people, but they're not like great people, and they're certainly not a help to the world either, right? So you're getting that juxtaposition, right? This is the cynicism of the world that Jodorowsky is showing you. It's very accurate to the real world through the art form. If you understand what the art's trying to say in this film, it's telling you the exact truth of our world. Because all of these iconic ideas are still happening in their modern forms with corporations that fulfill these functions, and thus the executives of those corporations they function as an embodiment of that, the way that, like, Hitler decided to become the German state, Yeah,
man. Yeah.
So
one last detail on this reality, with the mask making, on the Hierophant card in the Thoth deck, the Hierophant is correspondent to Taurus. And on that particular Hierophant card, he has the 4 masks in the corner. And so the fact that he's mask making as well is, again, landing very firmly in the correspondence of Taurus.
Okay. All right. That works. That works. All right. So this is, what's her name? Isla? This is Isla. Isla is Mars. So my Aries people, he does the 9, like the 8 planets plus the sun, so like he doesn't do Mercury, because Mercury's we already understand her. She works with the alchemist, right? So anyway, Isla, well, her name means island, right?
Yeah.
So that's like Mars, Aries, going solo, being alone, right?
Yep.
Right? There's a subtext to this. This doesn't look like she's actually a woman of color. This didn't quite get her pigment done right, but she's very black in a beautiful way. So she's got this black, very postmodern looking, like, triangular like room. This is her bedroom, right? It's like, like, you want to talk about House Harkonnen? This is more House Harkonnen-y kind of thing. Like, a little bit more of the world's pleasures. There's her. Did I get a better picture of her? I'll get back to that. There's this woman here. There's a better picture of her later. She's some sort of a guardian, right? She's got like a peg leg and like an eye patch or something. She's a thick woman of color, and she's kind of like a herald for Isla in the places that she goes and stuff, and she's waking her up here as part of her daily ritual. Right, and she's in this black bed that's like a super comfy, like, mega, like, it's almost like a mega coffin, right? And she rises up, and this is the 3 of Cups for one thing.
Nice.
And that's super obvious, right? which is funny that we're seeing Three of Cups through the Mars introduction. So she rises with her two lovers, and I sat there and I said, "My God, that's Phobos and Deimos."
Nice, bro. Yeah, absolutely.
And I suspect that these are the same girls from the beginning of the picture.
Oh yeah, yep. Initiation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The pagan beginning of the year in Aries, big time. Yeah, buddy.
Oh yeah. So
what?
This scene.
One more.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more quick comment. She's in a triangular room and she's participating in a love triangle.
Uh-huh.
And it's the third month on the zodiac is March.
Mm-hmm.
But there's even a really tiny constellation called Triangulum.
Yeah.
And technically, Triangulum is a minor decan of Pisces, but if you ask other systems, they'll float it just across the equinox, and they'll put it in Aries. So yeah, Triangulum all the way.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, this whole scene is showing like it's Mars, but like this is like she's got like I don't think I show. Okay, I don't show it. But like, you know, she'll sit there, it shows her getting like dressed like really, really slow. Like this is about showing you that she gets up super effing like comfortable. You know, she takes a hot minute to get straight. It's not like a rush out of bed, which is interesting because it's Mars, but as an Aries, I get it. That was like the way she gets out of bed, like that's the pace, the nice comfy pace that I like to get out of bed. I give myself. I wake up earlier than most people like comprehend. If my commute is 15 minutes, like you know, I'm up 2 hours before wherever I'm going at the beginning of the day. You know, when I went to work at 8, I have to leave the house around 7:30. I'm up at 6. Takes me 90 minutes to do my thing, because I do it slowly and it involves my ritual practice and trying to get something to eat, etc., etc. And so I don't rush that. I could get all that crap done in an hour, but I give myself an extra half an hour.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway, so they all put themselves together, and the first place they take you is she's got an orgy room. This is like she mirrors Venus. Venus has a bunch of female secretaries. She's got a bunch of male secretaries. These are all men. Like, so she's got, like, they're not castrated, but because they're gay men, this is kind of another form of the, quote, castrati, right? Because of the role of castrati with women. Right? Or, you know, like the emasculated man. Like, these men are of no type of physical sexual threat to her. Even if they were, it would be the scariest moment of her life because she's a militant fucking Aries. So here she is with her alleged Phobos and Deimos. She's got the black swans all behind her, which is like, is Jodorowsky saying that Aries or Mars is responsible for black swan events? Is that what that means?
Yeah, because a black swan event is a initiation. It's like something new that was totally unexpected and paradigm shattering.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I dig that.
All right. So they take them outside where they show you, because like she's a weapons maker. That's her bit, and shows she's making all these demonstrations for people. Her male secretary is all dressed in pink and stuff. It's this kind of a situation, and she's got drugs that help people get instigated into fights, right? So like these men have impaled themselves on bayonets because they feel a compulsion to try and attack, and it looks like they're like almost zombified, because they would impale themselves in the bayonet right in the stomach or the chest, whichever way they hit, then they back up and then run at it again, right? It's this violent little fucking scene where they're impaling themselves, and so they're watching a test of how some of their drugs work in this particular scene. Here's our other pelagic, because you've got a mannequin who has no face, kind of like the Jesus dude who got his face eaten off, right? And so here's another midget who's a paraplegic. He's got a rage drug running through him, and Isla's watching him as he is beating the crap out of this statue just because the drug has him enraged and he's conditioned to attack it. Right, and it's this funny thing with him screaming and all that stuff, and because you mentioned, let me get through the end of all this, and then we'll go back.
Yeah, buddy.
They go and they demonstrate all the different kinds of guns that she sells. I just took a picture of one. It's just like, okay, the guitar gun. I'm gonna grab that one, obviously. Right, so this is the guitar gun, the religious guns, so selling and so this is the absurdity of the violent Buddhist, so you get the gun for the Buddhists. So before we move on from Mars and Isla here, what do you got to say about her?
Man, I love that her name kind of means island. Somebody today, big ups to Garrett out there. He's over in the Innerverse circles, and he was rapping. I think he put out his I forget if it was on his first YouTube video or if it was just in the chat, but he was dropping some knowledge on how the Iliad has that Ili, which I believe that's in Latin. That means island. An Ili is an island. And then AD is like after death, or it's a segment in time. And a weird thing, there's no such thing as the year 0 AD. So the island of the 0 AD doesn't exist. It's a fugazi, because the first year of the count of the whatever Gregorian, it starts on 1 and there is no 0. So it's like the Iliad likewise is in the realm of forms. But the other thing about waking up slowly that makes me think of the first word of the is it the Torah? Yeah, I think it's the first word of the Torah is Barashit. And Barashit has a great amount of veneration for the early hours. And it's like, the first thing, it's the first word of their gospel. But yeah, that also makes me think of the days of that rising sun, or the hours of the rising sun, which is much like the sun is like kind of like one colored blanket, as the dark blanket is being drawn away. You're turning away one blanket for another one, which is a sheet, a bara sheet. So yeah, those are just some of the weaves I'm thinking about with this. But another thought here is we went from Taurus in the first character, Venus, and now we're going to Aries, or Mars in the next character. So in a strange way, they're kind of maybe hailing that concept of the precession of the equinox.
You're right, because the next guy is Clen. Clen is Jupiter. And you're going into Pisces, even though we have Neptune for Pisces later.
Yeah.
In the classical, Jupiter rules Pisces in the classical.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay. Yeah. So we're going backwards through the zodiac a little bit in this sequence of montages.
Yep. So they show you Clen's mansion off the bat, right? They show you the opulent level of living that he has and how big of like an industrial art guy that he is. I find it interesting that for all the points that he's making with these different characters, that here the centerpiece of his hallway, like you can see the big glaring toilet there as an art piece, but then above that toilet is a cross with Jesus on it.
Whoa.
Right? But obviously he's not a Christian because he's initiate of the alchemist, right? But they're still playing with that. So it's very interesting that point was made. I wanted to point out that you have this going on with this place as such. Before we end up at his factory after he picks up his mistress. They have this quick scene that makes no sense where you see these soldiers outside the building pulling a gator out of the sewer or something. Like they pulled up the stone from the sidewalk, and they've got a gator that they pulled out of the sewer just outside the building. So I'm just pointing, like it's just there. There's no reference to it. It has nothing to do with anything other than to tell you that this is something that happens occasionally outside of here, is that they have to turn up some alligators. This is one of the easy scenes I was able to grab of showing you his art hall. And all of his art exhibits are people in these objects, so that way only certain body parts are exposed, including their sexual body parts, as they are naked in these things. And this is it's like a sex exhibit, right? And all these people, there's a certain way that you're allowed to molest them that is considered artistically appropriate, right? And it's self-evident in the forms, and there's no like I didn't want to. I could have shown. I didn't want to bother like going out of my way. You can kind of get the idea just looking at all of these different things here, and all these. You can see the people's arms and whatnot, and then he shows you. This is an assembly line of ass paint, right? Like he's got people. He paints their ass. They sit on a piece of paint, like, and this is art that he sells, right? Cheap bullshit, right? This is what he's doing with cheap bullshit. Here, his Jupiter logo is upright. It's not inverted. I didn't grab the Mars logo for Isla. That one is inverted with the. That one, I think, had the arrow pointing down instead of up to the angle. Or straight up, as sometimes it is. All right? So, okay, so we got the assembly line. And then this scene is just the most fucking hysterical thing. I fucking love this scene. It's just the funniest fucking... This is a sex bot. So he's working on a sex bot. So he's got this cube. It's this cube, and the whole deal is that that's the applicator. That's the phallus. And that spot there, that stainless steel, like that's the clitoris of the machine. And right here, he's trying to sexually stimulate the robot, so it opens up. There's a whole thing where it opens up as an art piece by sexually stimulating it successfully. So he sucks at it. It only basically, this is it. That's as far as this guy goes. Now she fucking goes, and then, she strips naked, and then she really fucking goes to town with that rod, and then it opens up like this. Right? Totally. This is the fully simulated sex bot. It's got these arm things coming out that's kind of trying to, like caress her back, and stuff like that. All these feeler thingies are popping up, and... I'm staring at it. It's just like, this is such an apropos expression of kind of what it feels like. It's funny like that, right? So she successfully does this thing, causes the machine to have an ejaculation, and then it makes a baby. And it's cradling the baby, and there's a baby noise sound effect as it's cradling the baby. It's the fucking best thing ever. It's so great. Oh my god. And this I don't know if there's anything to say about much with the forms going on here other than it having something to do with the black cube.
Yeah. It is so funny. This scene is so funny. One thing I thought of right away was the smart refrigerator. And how many people, when they heard about, oh, you can have a refrigerator with a camera inside that while you're shopping, you can actually look and see if you're out of this, that, or the other thing. Like some people had like an emotional orgasm. Oh my God, we're living in the Jetsons era because you can have a smart refrigerator And I'm like, I'm not impressed, but I'm sure a lot of people were getting off on that. But we're in Jupiter, so the part where the people are planting their ass on the conveyor belt on the paper, that totally made me think of the Great Red Spot, the eye of Jupiter, which is actually shrinking. It's been shrinking at a dramatic rate. It's really going fast, and it's in stride with the inflation of money. The value of money is also getting smaller and smaller. So the moon eye of money is less and less significant, right in stride with one another. That is a fascinating thing.
Well, isn't it also interesting? Are the rings of Saturn still fading?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a big thing too.
Interesting. Yeah. Now we're almost at 11 o'clock. We're almost at 3 hours.
Yeah, buddy.
So I think that this is a perfect halfway point because this was the last of my notes on Jupiter, and then we move into Saturn after that. And so I think we might be able to land the plane if we want to pick up on this like really soon.
Yeah, buddy, that's a good. That's very apropos too. We run into the black cube of Saturn and call it a boundary. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So, why don't you? Because we're gonna land the plane. So why don't you just remind people about all your stuff? The link to your YouTube channel is down below. So anything else you want to say in self promotion, and if you want to say, because I can still create some availability until I get employed again. So when's the next time you want to jump back on this? Because I could do this tomorrow.
Nice. Well, maybe let's do like a Thursday or Friday. Let's wait till the end of the week.
Okay.
It would be better for me. But yeah, everybody knows the Slick Dissident is my YouTube channel. I'm on the Interverse with Chance Garton quite a bit. I just did a show with Juan on Juan and Carla Ionesco, and I thought it was going to drop on the public side, but it's actually behind his Patreon. So if people are so inclined, there is a real gem that we wove hard on Perseus and Medusa, and it was right in stride with the Perseid meteor showers that are coming on right now as we're speaking. So I'm over on Juan's channel quite a bit. But also, I'm stoked because I've had Cash App on my channel for a while. I now have the PayPal, so I can, people can donate from international. And I am contemplating some merch. Here in the next couple months, I'm going to have some T-shirts on offer that I'm really excited about, some art that I've been kind of stewing on for quite a while. So, yeah, that's something I'm working towards. And here in the next month, I have a migration back to Colorado, and I'm going to get back into my capoeira practice. And eventually, I have some fun potential. I want to plug into the homeschooling communities and offer some capoeira classes for some of those independent thinkers in the world. So yeah, that's kind of where my horizons are pointing.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Yeah. This was powerful, man. This is seriously like the ultimate film to put into its mystical context. This is like the high. We're aiming high with this one, and it's all fallen into place. This is a great weave.
Indeed. All right, guys. So listen. Thank you so much. We'll let you know. Hopefully, I certainly think I can do a Thursday. So we'll do Thursday or Friday. We'll see how that all rolls. Let me do the closing screen, and I'm going to change the title and give this a part 1 at the end of it, and set up a pending part 2. All right, and you might catch me do a small thing independently here or there in between then, depending on my time. All right, so thank you so much from I and Slick Dissident. Catch you guys on the flip side.